by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have been participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you. And
Keep watching the New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
hello, welcome to New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today we have Frank Mottl. Frank lives with his wife on the beautiful west coast of Canada. Mother's Keep is his second book. Like his first book, The Cumberland Tales, it's a combo of prose and poetry with a poem preceding each chapter. Unlike The Cumberland Tales, Mother's Keep has a linear plot and is based in the small town of Gibsons on the west coast of Canada during the Depression years. When not writing, Frank enjoys sailing, maintaining his sailboat, and teaching English part-time. Since retiring from the mill, Frank acquired his Bachelor's of Arts, an English major from Thompson Rivers University, and has spent a year in China teaching, which was good fodder for his book, The Cumberland Tales. Frank's wife, Linda, was also an artist, painted the covers for both books, The Cumberland Tales and Mother's Keep. Frank is always ready to discuss literature, having been a guest on various podcasts promoting his work. You can reach Frank through his website, www.frankwayne.net. There are two quotes which inspire Frank. And to paraphrase the first by William Blake, my job is not to reason and compare, my job is to create. The second quote is from John Keats, again to paraphrase, that which is creative must itself create. Thank you for joining us today, Frank. I hope you're having an excellent day.
Yeah, it's an excellent cloudy, kind of drizzly, rainy day here on the west coast of Canada. But yeah, it's very nice today, a little bit cooler.
Yeah, it's been kind of warm out here too. It's cooling off a little bit in recent couple of last days here in Texas and where I'm at. So why combine prose and poetry. What inspired that hybrid?
Well, I think that really poetry was my first sort of love. I remember reading in grade 12 Ode to a Grecian Urn by Keats, and that kind of caught me in the poetry thing.
Mm-hmm.
So probably my first love is poetry, but there's two reasons why. First of all, I think that when I write a poem that precedes a chapter, it gives the reader a different insight into the story. By interpreting the poem, the reader can it's easier for the reader to bring his own interpretations of what's going on in the story itself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be careful that, you don't drop any big hints in the poem to destroy what's coming up in the storyline itself. But it just gives the reader another avenue for his or her imagination. And the other reason is, of course, is that I want more people to read poetry. So why not add the poem to precede each chapter of a book, which I've done in both of my books so far.
Interesting. So what was the inspiration for the Cumberland Tales, and how is it different from Mother's Keep?
Oh, way different. Well, the Cumberland Tales is my hometown of Cumberland, which is about 30 miles south of Campbell River. So I grew up there in the 60s, and it was a real rough and tumble town. A lot of miners, a lot of loggers, a lot of bar fights, really a rough and tumble town. If that was in the 60s. Now, if you go back there today, it's gone 180 degrees. There's an influx of new people, lots of artists. It's really changed, and it's the young people that have kept that town so vibrant. So the Cumberland Tales is basically a collection of short stories. It's not too much of a linear plot. It jumps around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like it, some people don't. I always write the way I want to. So
Right.
the Cumberland Tales is basically, for me, it's a nostalgic look of my youth growing up there. I mean, we all have that, right? Where we grew up is powerful within each of us. I mean, I'm sure all of us could write a story about our nostalgic growing up years, for sure. Now, Mother's Keep is based on my granny, who was a World War II war bride from England. And she was a scullery maid there, and she met a Canadian fellow, while she was collecting firewood in the woods. So anyway, my granny was a real down-to-earth person. She told me, she said, if you have a bit of land, a few chickens, and a cow, you can always make ends meet. And she did that after settling in Gibson's with her new husband on about 10 acres of land, and they raised 4 kids through the Depression years. So it's basically based on my granny. But again, there's elements of magic realism there. Yeah, so.
How do the elements of the magical realism work into the work in Mother's Keep?
It's quite in Mother's Keep. What it is, well, it's based on my. I remember my granny telling me a story. We all respected her, and she told me she read an article. She said, "I read this article in the paper the other day about a fellow who was highly educated, and he went and lived by himself in the woods in a teepee." And I could tell that, she admired this guy because she was very simple herself. She didn't have running water or anything like that. So from that story, I thought, wow, okay, so I'm going to introduce this fellow that lives in a teepee, that's out in the woods, who happens to be staked on Granny's land, but he doesn't know it. And he's such an unusual fellow that it was an easy step for me to go from his living in the woods, his conflict with the local Anglican minister within the town, into magic realism.
How do you accomplish that? Was there a steady method you used? I mean, did you have a set of storylines, or was there just a spontaneous kind of
It's a
jump from reality to? Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
to go in magic realism, be spontaneous, just break it. All of a sudden you're in a normal world and then break it. Either you can go through a dream, like I had dream worlds also. When you enter a character's mind, you can create all sorts of scenarios where it becomes more than just within the character's mind. All of a sudden it's within the whole narrative of the novel itself, right? So for me, it's quite an easy thing to do. The nature of magic realism is that fast break between the normal world and the extraordinary events that are happening within a normal world.
How does that work? Its perception of reality, in your opinion, of the reader?
Well, the reader's perception, it's just another avenue for the reader. It's another escape, right? The reader will read the book. He'll say, "Oh my God," it's just switched. But that's what magic realism is all about: is to bring that turn of events, to bring something different. So all of a sudden, the reader has got to refocus his mind on what's going on now, right?
Interesting. So you mix poetry, you mix magical realism, and you have basically what's sort of like a memoir, plot based. Your plot or your conception is basically kind of like a nostalgic memoir. So what are some interesting themes in Mother's Keep that come out in the story?
Oh, lots. I think within Mother's Keep, it's got to be about family first and foremost. It's got to be about survival. There's also about religion in terms of conventional religion and the good or bad effects that can have, as opposed to, agnostics. Also, that the fellow in the woods had his own set of beliefs, very kind of strange beliefs, but he was a very academically trained person. And also there was an element of purgatory within Mother's Keep also, because part of the theme is that this fellow who went to war and died in World War II was stuck in purgatory because God does not approve of war, right? So what the minister said was, if you want to rescue this guy, which happened to be Granny's husband's brother, then you would have to donate some money to the church. That's the only way to get him out of purgatory. So automatically you've got lots of conflicts going on between religions, between beliefs, between faith, right? So
is there I don't want to just say point, but is there like a sort of an idea you're trying to present there with all these various narratives going on?
Really, it's more about, for me, what I want to write. I mean, I don't really have to make a living writing, right? Like I'm doing it because I enjoy it. So when I write, it's something that I want to write, that I feel a need to write. And for me, if people like it, great, which lots of people do. And if they don't get it, or it's too abstract, or the metaphors are too extended and they break or whatever, then that's fine. But not that I intentionally try to break any metaphors, but I try to extend them out as far as I can, because that's all we can comprehend, right? So you have to stretch your mind, stretch your imagination, but don't break the rubber band, so to speak. Because otherwise, everybody's like, it doesn't make sense, right? So
get to a point where it loses its salience, I guess, or its constituted power, I guess. When you take it, stretch it so far, it's like now it's nothing. Now it's broke, as you said, broken rubber band. You pulled it all the way. It's a great metaphor.
It's a fine line, though. But if you can maintain the connection, right? If the connection is there, then I believe it's even more powerful.
So, and speaking of, you writing for the enjoyment of it, what do you think a writer's duty to the society he or her lives in, or What do you think, from a personal perspective or from a social perspective, writing serves?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, writing is so basic to our existence, really. I mean, I suppose we had language first. I don't know, but I mean, writing. I mean, if you're literate, you're going to be reading everything all around you every day. Signs in the street, newspaper articles. I mean, writing is a powerful, powerful, nuance in the society we all share, right? I think that especially if you want to share a society, well, then everybody better be involved with writing. If you want to live in a society that's, a total dictatorship or whatever, well, you know what? Nobody has to write, because guess what? The boss, the king, or whoever, he's dictating everything anyway. So the
Right.
free expression of ideas is lost, really, without writing. I mean, it's all confined and imploded on itself.
So what is Cumberland Blue? Your book Cumberland Tales. What is the premise of that? What are you exploring there?
Oh, it's just basically a lot of memories from when I was younger, growing up. So I had lots of little anecdote tales with my friends and what we used to do, from raiding gardens to going down to the old Chinatown, because within Chinatown, or within Cumberland, the proper town of Cumberland, it was an old coal mining town. So the Cumberland Chinatown was the second largest next to San Francisco, because there's still lots of coal in Cumberland. So as kids, I mean, in Cumberland, there was Jumbo, Chinese fellow. He was left. There was Sam Yik. There was another fellow named Broken Back. And I remember all of these characters vividly, right? Sam Yik was a character. He's just an excellent gardener. And he used to trundle around Cumberland selling his vegetables to, all the people up in the new houses, or, down camp. And so, yeah, there's lots of really interesting stuff in the Cumberland Tales. There's no doubt.
I actually read it described as giving a town a voice. What do you think of that description?
Yeah. Well, my intention was to give the town a voice. I hope that I've done that. Because, I mean, my old friends in Cumberland who I grew up with, they agree that the town, I'd have given it because the town a voice in a way, because there's so many different anecdotal tales there. Some are true, some are like over the top. They're not true, right? So it's a mixture. It's basically fiction. But yeah, I think that I hope that was my intention, to give the town itself a voice. So that was my aim, and I did the best I could. I don't know if I accomplished it or not, but I had lots of fun in writing the book, and yeah, so it was good.
So why did you want to give the town a voice?
Powerful. For me, it's powerful. Like, I'm an entity of one. That was my hometown, until I turned 17 and moved away from home, right? So I spent all those years there. I mean, all the interesting characters, the Chinese community, the Japanese community, the Italian community, all these different peoples were all stuffed together, right? And so, like, I lived there. I was born in 1955. I moved there, but I mean, the town of Cumberland goes back, to the 19th century, way back. There's lots of untold stories, and that's what I say in the book too, is that there's lots of stories that I don't even know about. So I just concentrated on the 60s, really.
Wow. So what is it about the nostalgic good old days that brings you hope and interest?
Well, my good old days, when I was a kid, I'm not going to say perfect, because I don't believe in perfection. I think it's a policy, but I had a happy childhood. My father was a logger. He made very good money. I was friends with the local doctor in town, with Kevin. I had some very good friends there, that, lifelong friends. So you don't, it's like the nostalgia, right? When everybody reflects back on their childhood. Now, I'm not saying I shouldn't say everybody, because I'm sure there's lots of adults that have had a poor childhood, right? For me, it was good. So I drew on that because I wanted to share it not only with the people of Cumberland, but with people all over the world, because I'm sure there's lots of people that read that have no idea what it was like to grow up in that little town.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was a matter of so you look back on it with the kind of joy and happiness at your childhood, and it brings these memories, and you want to sort of express the locale where those memories took place.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many scenarios, like they're so vivid. You remember things that happened as a kid, and you just don't forget them.
Right.
There was one situation there where, it was a freewheeling town. There was lots of drinking, and there were lots of muscle cars. They used to have races down the main streets because the police weren't really around. The closest town the police were was Courtenay. I mean, there was a lot of crazy stuff that went on. I mean, I could tell you some stories. One time there, a fellow named Ticky, his nickname was Ticky. He was mowing the church lawn on a hot summer day. So he's pushing the lawn. Anyway, the lawnmower conks out, and he goes to start it. The thing won't start. So he's pulling and pulling and pulling. And all of a sudden, the whole lawnmower just bursts into flames. Yeah. So I guess gas must have spilt or whatever in the hot engine. So this 340 Duster comes roaring around the corner, slams on the brakes. All these guys get out, and they're drinking beer. They all go around the lawnmower, and they pull out their Johnsons, and they all pee on the lawnmower to put out the fire. Then they all hop back in the car, and away they go again. And old Ticky, this fellow, said, thanks guys. Well, thank you. So that's a true story.
Wow.
So really, things like that are easy peasy to write about. I mean, the story itself is just like, it's an easy sell.
Right.
Yeah. So little things like that are actual true stories that happened, right? So, yeah.
We're going to take a brief break, and we'll come back with some writing from you, some samples. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects, from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have been participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hi, and welcome back. We have Frank Mottl here with some sample works of his, and I hope you enjoyed the music at the break. And that was some wonderful tunage from Omar Issa. So, Frank, with all due, go ahead. Okay, well, this one, I think I'll read an excerpt of Prose from the Cumberland Tales. This is true. We told him to get out of the way, but he was too slow and we were too impatient. He plodded. Then something happened. We were all lined up, 12 toboggans across the hill ready to go, loaded with kids. We were waiting for Ricky to get out of the way. Then, in the center of us, someone lost their footing and something was said. The toboggan started to slide slowly and everyone followed suit. But Ricky wasn't out of the way.
He plodded up the hill with his head down, and when he looked up, he didn't have time to get out of the way. It was like slow motion, his expression of shock, our inability to stop. It all happened so fast. Then things changed. Ricky lay down gently on the hill and held the rope for his toboggan. He lay down profoundly, like he was sacrificing himself, committing suicide, but it didn't happen. What did happen was he rode right over him and his toboggan. I thought he was squished deeper into the snow, and his wooden toboggan sprang back up into its original shape. So that's a small excerpt from the Cumberland Tales, prose. Yeah.
Is it prose? Yeah, it's a very interesting story. I love the effects you create, like the slow motion, like in slow motion and so forth. It's very interesting.
Yeah, if you could see the image of this kid walking up this snow hill, that's great.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted, right? So yeah, and then of course that was published like a couple of years ago. So this Mother's Keep, I only just got a few copies just the other day from the printing. I could try a poem if you want.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so let's see. Here's a poem. It's called Cave Art, Portrait of Remembrance. I see peaceful firelight in the distance, silently licking stone-cold cave walls. I see willow flames dance and leap, wall art that dwells inside minds of anguish. I see sad flesh and blood sit and stare sadly, sweetly, after tilling elder brother into blue-gray gumbo oozing slaughter. I recall glory of Buddy's heroes today, becoming tomorrow's wreck of a man. I see Joseph spy the cave light at tunnel's end. Hello, he says, lightly walking, peers deeper into cold cave firelight. I see deep consecration of men, women lost, sweep the cave. For the children, Joe says, shaking hands, folding careful blanket over careful cookies, mother's warm embrace with fatherly love. Cannot stay long, Joe says, hearing thunder call. Wait one moment, says father. We pray, says mother. Ortona waits for me, Joe says. Tomorrow, heed an ear to where the battle rages loudest, for there, steep in endurance, be the caring, warring Seaforth.
The first early image of the fire licking the walls, that one caught me immediately. It's very interesting. I've heard the concept or the metaphor of fire licking when it, because it has such a fickle nature to it, and so it does kind of appear to be like in a way licking, like, especially when it's kind of in motion there. So I think that image really captured the nature of fire. That was very interesting.
Oh, good, yeah, because fire does lick. I mean, it's not a person, right? But even the flames, right?
Right.
Up and down and up and down, and so on the cave wall, you'll get the shadow of the which is even more, extended. But anyway, good. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Okay.
So I'm curious, what writers did you study at Thompson Rivers that inspired and excited you as a writer?
Well, I mean, I worked with a poet. Oh gosh, she was Cree, Marilyn Dumont, and she's a Canadian poet more than a prose writer, but she taught me a lot about poetry. I mean, I've always dabbled with writing poetry, but once she realized that I was serious about, learning how to write poetry, she really took me under her arm, and she really taught me a lot. And it's like the imagery, like I'm good with this description, I'm good with imagery and things like that. And of course, I mean, getting a degree in English let you read all sorts of the classics, Virginia Woolf. I mean, I love Faulkner, William Faulkner, the great American fellow. And I've, I'll even read Joyce. I hammered my way through Ulysses.
Oh yeah.
So, that was kind of a like, oh my God. But for some reason, and it's the same even when I read Shakespeare, like say, how can you read Shakespeare? Like it's so, I don't even know what it means. But here's a trick.
Mm-hmm.
When you read Shakespeare, don't worry about like the literal meaning. Just read it and let the language flow over you.
Right.
And the more you read, the more you'll say, oh, yeah, I kind of get it. Right. So it's always not about, what does this poem mean? Or, but rather look at the thing like how do these words put together give me this kind of feeling? Like, what is it about them? Mm-hmm. Right? So, yeah. So it's not always about trying to figure out what the poet is trying to say. It's more about how they say it, because the interpretation is always unique.
I agree. I'd like to take a moment to appreciate our regular viewers, Sheikh Musa Drame and Ibsita Gangali. Thank you very much for watching the program today and commenting. So, what other writers inspire you as far as like in general, just not just where you were studying, but in general, like right now, what are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now? Well, mainly I stick with all the classics. Dostoevsky, I just finished Crime and Punishment.
Oh, wonderful.
I'll generally lean towards the classics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really do. I know I should be. I know there's a ton of great contemporary writers out there,
mm-hmm.
but I basically the writers that I read, you'd probably get, Bronte. I read a lot of the classics. It's got to be, if I'm going to spend my time on reading something, or Faulkner or Hemingway or Nabokov. I really like Nabokov. I mean, I just like reading those guys because that's who I want to read. I should actually branch out and read more contemporary stuff. Most people are the opposite. They're reading contemporary. They don't like the classics, but I'm sort of the other way around.
Yeah, I'm a little bit the same. I'm actually quite a bit the same way. I read a little bit of contemporary literature, but also mostly read classics and what stands the test of time. Do you find that there's any qualities you specifically like in what you read?
Yeah, I like well, they call it stream of consciousness, I guess. Like I was into Virginia Woolf for a long time. Anything that pulls your imagination to a different area that you didn't expect to go in, that you enjoy, whether the writer intended to do that or not, it's neither here nor there. I mean, it's up to the reader, the way that they interpret what they're reading, right? So, yeah.
Did you ever try to brave your way through Finnegan's Wake?
Oh my God, I heard about it. No, I haven't tried it yet.
Oh, you gotta try it. It's wonderful. It's
really?
It's, like you said, it's very poetical. It's. I read it many years ago. It's massive. It took me a long time, but it's a wonderful book, and it's full of puns and fun wordplay, and I like to talk about it. It's really interesting. It's hard to follow sometimes. It goes in every direction, as you said. You'd like it. I think based on what you've described, you'd love it.
Yeah, I probably would love it. If I saw it in the library or the secondhand bookstore, I would pick it up. I should probably go to 8 Books and buy a few copies or 1 copy. Yeah, Finnegan's.
Excellent.
I heard it's even more esoteric than Ulysses.
It is very much so.
So it's really out there.
Yeah, he wrote it in several different languages, and they sometimes clash with each other. The languages, he pulls the language together in such a way that's like, it is hard to follow, but you just enjoy the rhythm and the flow and the puns that you can catch and interpreting what you can from it. It's really fun.
Yeah, that sounds really good, actually.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah, and it's very close to poetry, like it's prose, but I think it's quite close to a poetic kind of device, right?
Right. Very poetical. I would say it definitely was. When I read it, it was more about the way the language flowed and the ideas you could pull from it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. It's really intense to read.
Yeah.
So, a question outside of literature, but at the same time within the same bounds. What is the most interesting question you've been asked on a podcast?
Probably the most thing that caught me aback was on the Cumberland Tales when it first came out. And the fellow asked me about herring fishing. He said, out of the blue, he said, have you ever gone herring fishing? And it really caught me aback because at the time, I couldn't recall even writing about herring fishing in that book. Although at the time, now I know what passage he was referring to. And he was referring to raking herring, because in the old days, you would rake herring. But the story I told was another herring fishing expedition where you'd drop a line over the side that had two hooks. And you just go down and you just go like this. And the line would get heavier and heavier and heavier. Of course, there's more and more fish that are getting hooked. You need to wind them all up. So it was unusual because it was a literary podcast thing. And the guy all of a sudden asked me about herring, which refers to like a small little minuscule passage in the book, which I couldn't recall. So I told him this other thing. So caught me off guard altogether.
Wow. So it just did you just improvise some answer, or did you?
The only thing I could think about, Dustin, was, but in hindsight, I remember raking herring is different because you have a long wooden pole with little tines. You go to the front of the boat, you go through a school of herring, and you sweep, and you can feel a ting, 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 ting of all these little herring. So that's what he was referring to. But at the time when he asked me, I was like, oh, just blank. I couldn't remember anything about herring.
Wow.
So anyway, I don't know if that really answered your question very well.
That does. That's a very interesting question. It gives a little bit of a flavor to the interview, I think. The kind of odd things that happen with authors when they're promoting their work.
Yeah, it's just like it was totally off the wall and my mind went blank. So I just said, okay, I'm going with this.
So what final words would you offer to our viewers and writers out there? Words of encouragement, words of advice?
Well, you quoted those two, especially the one by William Blake. You know, your job as a writer. If you're a writer, or you know what, even if you're a reader and you're not a writer and you're out there in society and you're fighting my reason, Blake said, is not to reason and compare. My job is to create. So for a writer, that's great advice, because you go down the aisles, it's like, oh my God, there's bazillion books. There's 8,000 books published a day or whatever. Who cares, right? I mean, if you want to write, you have to make the commitment. You have to write. You probably have to go to work, get a full-time job. When you come home, then you pick up a pen and paper or sit at your computer or whatever, right? So that's good advice. And in terms of society too, right? Like if you're out there, you know, I mean, it's not, don't reason and compare. Just do your job, you know, stay calm, do your job.
So are there any people you'd like to give a shout out to on the program?
Oh man. Well, gosh, there's probably a lot, but who can I think of? A lot of my writer friends, Toby, a lot of them are in the US, Denise. I mean, there's tons of my poet LinkedIn friends. Yeah, and all my old buddies from Cumberland, Scott, who just recently published a book also from that came out of Cumberland, Scott. And yeah, just a shout out to everybody to just kind of keep calm and let's share this world in a positive way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Frank. It's been pleasant talking with you. I'm glad you were able to join us. And you guys out there viewing, we're looking for donations and paypal.me/nyparrot. You can support our programming by donating a little extra money to that PayPal account, paypal.me/nyparrot. And again, we have the anthology coming out in December, Series 2. That'll be coming out around December 1st, as it did this last August. We had Series 1. As if you haven't checked that out, please get a copy. It's $18 on Amazon, and check out this commercial when it comes at the end. And thanks for viewing. Subscribe to our channel. If you haven't subscribed already, everybody out there, we're looking for 1 million subscribers. We want to build a great, large, creative community of people who will be supportive of each other, supportive of the program. If you want to be on the program, you can get in touch with me at literarycorner@newyorkparrot.com. I hope this has been an entertaining program for you guys out there. And thanks to Sanka Sen for giving us his music for today, and K-Born, and everybody else who has been very pleasant with their songs, and others. So thank you very much for joining us again, Frank, and thanks to our viewers. And I hope you guys out there are having an excellent afternoon. I'm signing off, Dustin Pickering, Parrot. Hi, this is the most amazing collection I have read so far. I'm a reading-aholic. Dustin Pickering, you know me from Parrot Literary Corner. This is the Literary Parrot, available at Amazon.com and its various affiliates. If you have not seen this collection, it's 249 pages of glorious global literature in a contemporary vein. This covers a lot of subjects, from the coronavirus to violence on the streets, to love, to romance. Everything you can imagine is in this collection, and you should buy it now. I'll tell you why. It's a collection of unique voices from the Literary Parrot. People have been on our show, have participated in this, or have been published on our website, newyorkparrot.com. So please, I implore you, buy a copy. Thank you, and The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice.